She didn't know what was happening. Not exactly. Her hands were still strong enough to hold a teacup, her memory sharp enough to recall the names of her grandchildren. But her legs, those legs that once climbed hills, danced at weddings, and walked miles to buy groceries, had started to betray her, slowly, quietly, as if they were growing tired of carrying her through the world. She was taking her vitamins, eating well, even doing the little exercises from her physiotherapist. So why did everything feel heavier? Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara, who lived until 105 and treated patients into his final years, once said, "Do not rely on age as an excuse. Question what your body is really telling you." It's a sentence that asks for reflection, not guilt. Not everything that weakens us is aging. Sometimes the very things we trust to keep us strong, like certain vitamins, begin to work against us. Not because they are wrong, but because our bodies change. Because balance matters more than quantity. And because after 60, we deserve to know not only what to take, but also what to watch for. It's no wonder so many older adults feel confused. You read the labels, you listen to your doctor, you take the supplements, but the stairs are still hard, the walks are shorter. There's a quiet fear you don't say aloud. Am I doing something wrong? Am I missing something? The truth is, you might not be missing anything at all. You might in fact be carrying too much. This isn't about alarm, it's about attention, about curiosity, about asking better questions. Because, as Dr. Peter Attia says, what matters most is function, not just lab values. We need strength we can feel, not just numbers that look good on paper. We need muscles that respond, legs that hold steady, and hands that still open jars. And sometimes that means looking at our habits with new eyes. In this video, we'll explore something rarely discussed: how 3 common vitamins, yes, the very ones you likely have in your cabinet right now, can, when taken the wrong way or in the wrong dose, silently interfere with your strength, your balance, your confidence. These aren't bad vitamins, but they are misunderstood. And when it comes to aging well, misunderstanding can cost us more than we realize. So let's walk through this together, gently, honestly. Because you deserve to feel steady again. You deserve to know what your body is telling you. And maybe, just maybe, what needs to change is not your body, but the way we've been trying to help it. She had never even heard of folate until her doctor mentioned it during a routine visit. "Good to keep your heart and brain sharp," he'd said, handing her a bottle of supplements. At the pharmacy, the label read, "Folic acid" in bold letters. It sounded simple enough, harmless. Another piece in the puzzle of staying healthy after 70. So she took it day after day, trusting it was doing what it promised. But the puzzle didn't come together. Her legs began to feel disconnected. Her balance wavered when she got out of bed. A few small stumbles, one quiet fall. It's something few people talk about: the difference between synthetic folic acid and the natural methylated form of folate. Most cereals, baked goods, and multivitamins for seniors are fortified with folic acid. It's a standard practice meant to prevent deficiency. But when the body can't efficiently process that synthetic form, as is the case for millions with a gene variation known as MTHFR, something strange begins to happen. The blood may look normal, even optimal, while beneath the surface, critical signals between nerves and muscles begin to weaken. The communication lines fray, like old wires in a telephone pole. What's even more concerning is how this folic acid overload can mask a true B12 deficiency, one of the leading causes of neurological and muscular decline in older adults. The tests come back fine, but the legs feel unsure. The feet shuffle. The body whispers warnings in its own quiet language: tingling, imbalance, sudden fatigue. And still the folic acid keeps arriving, silently drowning out the very deficiency that needs attention. A woman, 80 years old, once came into a clinic with a story that could have belonged to anyone. Her diet was reasonable. She was active in her garden, but over a few months, she'd begun falling. Not tripping, just falling, as if her legs had forgotten they were supposed to hold her. It wasn't until a more careful practitioner looked deeper, tested her methylation genes, and reviewed her supplements that the truth came into view. Once her folic acid was removed and replaced with methylfolate, alongside proper B12, her footing began to return, not immediately, but gradually, step by step. It's not a miracle, it's physiology. When the wrong key is used, the lock doesn't open. When the body is flooded with the wrong form of a vitamin, the signals that keep our muscles responsive begin to fade. It's like trying to listen to a soft melody through the static of a broken radio. The music is still there, but you can't hear it. Your muscles are still willing, but they no longer receive the right message. If you've ever felt like your legs are unsteady even after sleeping well and eating right, if you've noticed your hands don't respond as quickly as they used to, it may not be aging alone. It may be a conversation your body is trying to have, muffled by a nutrient that was meant to help but no longer fits your system. This isn't about fear. It's about tuning back into the signals, about finding the right version of support, one your body can truly recognize, because it's not always what's missing. Sometimes it's what's too loud. It began with good intentions. A neighbor had mentioned the immune-boosting power of vitamin A, and a well-meaning daughter had brought home a bottle of supplements. "Just a little extra support," she said, placing it on the kitchen shelf between the turmeric and the cinnamon. For weeks, maybe months, the capsules became part of the daily rhythm, taken with tea in the morning, followed by a slow walk and a glance at the birds outside the window. But slowly, something shifted. The energy that once returned after rest seemed slower to arrive. The strength in the legs, once dependable, began to fade like a song growing distant. Not gone, but less. And the bones, though not broken, began to feel more delicate, like branches holding too much snow. Most people don't realize that many multivitamins, especially those labeled for immunity or aging, contain forms of vitamin A that are far stronger than the body needs, particularly in retinol form, retinol palmitate, retinol acetate. These are concentrated synthetic forms. In small, controlled doses, they support vision and immune function. But in overlapping supplements or combined with fortified foods, they begin to accumulate. And when they accumulate, they interfere. Vitamin A in excess is quiet but stubborn. It begins to affect how the body absorbs and uses vitamin D, a key player in muscle contraction and bone density. It disrupts the harmony of calcium, making it harder for your muscles to respond with clarity. A leg that once lifted confidently begins to hesitate. A hand that once opened jars begins to tremble with effort. No pain, no injury, just a slow withdrawal of strength, as if the body is unsure of its own rhythm. There was a man, late 70s, who came to realize something wasn't right only after he stopped gardening. He hadn't meant to stop. He just no longer trusted his knees on the soil. It turned out he was taking 2 different supplements, one for his eyes, another for general vitality, both containing high doses of retinol palmitate. No one had told him to look for that. No one had warned him that too much of a good thing can quietly begin to undo the very strength he was trying to preserve. When he made the shift, choosing food sources like sweet potatoes, carrots, and leafy greens, where vitamin A comes as beta-carotene and the body takes only what it needs, something began to return. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, like light returning through a cloudy window. Vitamin A, when misused, behaves like a jealous partner. It pushes aside others that are just as important, vitamin D, calcium, magnesium, and insists on taking up all the space. It doesn't scream. It doesn't break things. It simply whispers, "I'll do it all." And in doing so, it leaves your muscles unsupported, your bones less steady, your steps less sure. The older body is not broken. It is wise, selective, sensitive. It no longer wants excess. It wants harmony. It wants nutrients that work together, not in competition. And sometimes, the gentlest strength is found not in what we add, but in what we allow to soften, to balance, to breathe. If your muscles feel weaker despite your efforts, the pinned comment may explain why. He'd read about it in a magazine at the barbershop. Vitamin E, the antioxidant hero. Good for the heart, great for the skin, helpful for inflammation. The article was filled with big promises in small sentences. It sounded safe, so he added it to his routine. Just one soft gel every morning. Then another product, for healthy aging, arrived in the mail. That had vitamin E too. No one questioned it. Felt harmless. Who would be afraid of a vitamin? But there was a change he couldn't explain. His muscles ached after short walks. Recovery took longer. He started skipping his morning stretch because something in his legs felt fragile, as if repair had become harder than it should have been. The stiffness didn't hurt, it simply lingered like a visitor who wouldn't leave, and slowly his strength began to drain. Vitamin E is one of those nutrients that holds two faces. In food, like sunflower seeds, spinach, and almonds, it works with elegance. It plays its part in harmony with other vitamins, protecting your cells gently, like a soft cloth shielding delicate glass. But in high doses, especially when isolated in supplements, it can lose that harmony. It begins to disrupt rather than support. And in bodies that are not moving regularly, bodies slowed by pain, grief, fatigue, it may do more harm than good. Most vitamin E supplements only include one type, alpha tocopherol, but nature provides 8 forms, 4 tocopherols and 4 tocotrienols. When we isolate just one and ignore the rest, we tilt the balance. And imbalance, in older muscles, can be a quiet threat. Instead of protecting your tissues, excess alpha tocopherol can block the absorption of other critical forms of E and even increase oxidative stress, the very thing it was meant to reduce. Muscles repair more slowly. Inflammation lingers longer. Fatigue deepens. A study in Northern Europe observed a group of seniors who were given high doses of vitamin E without being asked to move more. Over time, these individuals showed more signs of muscle breakdown than those who took nothing at all. Not because vitamin E is dangerous, but because, like every tool, it must match the work at hand. And without movement, without balance, even helpful tools can leave dents. Imagine vitamin E as a wrench. In the right hands, it tightens and repairs. In the wrong setting, it strips the bolt. It's not the tool's fault. It's how and when and where it's used. In older age, the body speaks in subtle tones. It doesn't shout when something is off. It hums. It pauses. It begins to resist. The shoulder becomes hesitant. The knees respond a little slower. And when that happens, we must look not only at what's missing, but also at what's overflowing. Sometimes strength doesn't return because we're still pouring in too much of something we once needed, but no longer do. The path forward isn't to fear nutrients. It's to respect their timing, to recognize that food carries these vitamins in the right forms, in the right doses, in the right company, and that perhaps the best repair for aging muscles doesn't come from a capsule, but from the rhythm of gentle movement, the simplicity of seeds and greens, and the wisdom of knowing when enough is enough. There's a quiet drawer in many homes, often in the kitchen or beside the bed, filled with bottles. Magnesium for sleep, B12 for energy, a multivitamin for general health, calcium, fish oil, CoQ10, a legacy of good intentions gathered over years. Each one chosen in the hope of preventing decline, of staying just a little stronger, a little longer. But sometimes, without realizing it, the drawer becomes heavier than the body it's meant to support. It's easy to forget that supplements overlap. One capsule contains what another already provides. A multivitamin adds to what a fortified cereal gave in the morning. And slowly, what began as help becomes excess. Not dramatic, not poisonous, but enough to confuse the body. Enough to weigh down its natural rhythm. Enough to drain the very energy we were trying to protect. Muscle fatigue. That strange tingling in the feet, a sense of unsteadiness that comes and goes. These are rarely blamed on vitamins, but they should not be dismissed, because when the body receives more than it can use, especially in synthetic isolated forms, it begins to resist, not with loud symptoms, but with small retreats. Muscles recover more slowly. Coordination fades a little. The stairs begin to look steeper than they did last year. In some parts of Japan, older adults are encouraged not to chase after isolated nutrients, but to return to the table. Miso soup, fermented vegetables, tiny, oily fish, variety from the earth. Nothing extreme, nothing magical, just balance. And their muscles, joints, and minds often reflect this rhythm. Resilient yet soft, not over-supplemented, just well-fed. There is wisdom in simplicity. In looking at everything we're taking and asking not, what else should I add, but what have I added twice? What am I still taking simply because I always have? These are not questions of doubt. They are questions of care, because the body, like a well-tended garden, thrives not when flooded but when understood. Too many vitamins in too many forms can crowd the system. Just like a pantry filled with too many spices, flavors once distinct now blur into confusion. And the original recipe, the one your body has followed for decades, is harder to taste. It's not about stopping everything. It's about clearing the table, just enough to listen again, to see what remains when you pause, to discover which nutrients your body still welcomes, and which have quietly outstayed their welcome. Aging doesn't ask for more. It asks for precision, for attention, for the kind of gentleness that knows when to give and when to let go. Dr. Shigeaki Hinohara lived more than a century not by taking more pills, but by asking better questions. Staying healthy doesn't mean taking more, he once said. It means knowing what to stop. In a world that often pushes us to add, to consume, to keep stacking new things on top of old habits, that kind of wisdom feels like fresh air. Gentle, radical, true. These vitamins, folate, vitamin A, vitamin E, they are not enemies. They are tools. But every tool, even the finest one, must be used with care. And as we grow older, the way we absorb, store, and respond to nutrients begins to shift. What once supported us may now overwhelm us. What once gave energy may now leave fatigue in its place. The problem isn't the nutrient itself, but the lack of context, the habit of trusting the label instead of the body. Dr. Peter Attia often reminds us that longevity is not about blind action. It's not about how many supplements you take or how well your blood test looks. It's about function. Can you rise from the chair unassisted? Can you walk across the room with ease? Can you lift your arms to embrace someone you love? That is what matters. That is the test worth passing. So perhaps the real question is not, what am I missing? But, what have I continued without asking why? Sometimes the strength we long for is hidden beneath what we've been taught to take. Sometimes clarity begins with subtraction, with setting one bottle aside, with stepping back to see the whole picture, not just the label. Your body remembers, it speaks, and it wants to be heard, not with fear, not with guilt, but with a deep, respectful curiosity. Because health at this stage of life is not a race, it's a conversation, and every conversation begins by listening. So consider this. Is the supplement in your cabinet helping your body, or just feeding your shelf? You do not need to change everything today, but maybe this week there is one thing you can look at with new eyes. One habit you can question, not because it failed you, but because you've changed. And your body, your wise, tired, beautiful body, deserves to be met exactly where it is. It's still possible. It's always possible. One quiet question at a time. One breath of awareness. One step closer to balance. Before we part, let me leave you with this. Sometimes the smallest shifts lead to the greatest changes. And sometimes a quiet piece of insight comes just when you need it most. If something in today's reflection spoke to you, if a part of you is still wondering what else there is to uncover, then take a moment when you're ready to look at the pinned comment below. What you find there may stay with you longer than you expect.